Is that prophecy? Is that insight? Is that intuitiveness? What is prophecy? And now that we're standing on the threshold of prophecy, maybe it'll help us to understand what it is that we are prophesizing and seeing. And take this word prophecy and turn it into enhancement and expansion and make it part of our creativity instead of dreaming about it and bring it to life. So in a good way, I'll ask you, if you will, stand up. Let's welcome the morning. World Beat Band.
Sing about your love, think about your love, dancing fire from the love of everyone. Sing along, everybody, come on. Standing at the threshold of the moment in my life, looking far into the ceaseless wonders of His name. All from the mountains top, from here to be your hand. Touch me and we'll go on my way. And sing about your love, sing about your love, think about your love, dancing fly above the Lord of everyone.
Oh, good morning again, Jubilee. Standing at the threshold on the things that we hope that will be, which is to have this room full again, maybe even be back to 2 services, whatever that looks like. Let's create that vision together. If you will, please, let's face to the east. Oh, spirits of the east. We thank you. We thank you for the simplicity that was your life. We thank you for the prayers and the visions and the efforts that were yours that became the prophecies of the future. We thank you for listening to the winds and to all the voices that have spoken to you in a good way. We ask you to continue to share with those things that you hear. Thank you for all that you do for us in a good way. I hope. Face to the south, please. Oh, spirits of the south. To all the cloud people and all the thunder beings and snow beings, we thank you for coming and being with us. Reminding us of the sudden changes of nature, the suddenness of change of light. We thank you in this time for all that you do to remind us of the greatness of nature. We honor you, we welcome you, and we thank you in a good way. Oh. Face to the west, please. Oh, ancestors, we thank you. We thank you for the prophecies that you have spoken, for building the foundation of those prophecies in your life. As we continue to build upon that foundation to house our next generations, we ask you to continue to share your wisdom with all of us, for all the generations to come, to honor all the generations that have been in a good way. We thank you and we honor you and invite you to come celebrate this day with us. I hope. Face to the north, please. Oh, spirits of the north, to all the Wind Nation, we give gratitude and thanks. We add the silence of our heart, those things that can't be spoken in the human language. We ask you to reach inside the depths of our spirit to help us to breathe into life the visions that we have, so that we might be the generations of prophets that our next generations will look upon and give gratitude as we give gratitude to you. Help us to rise to your greatness in this time. And in a good way, we invite you to come and celebrate this day with us. Oh, face the center, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh. Invite you, if you will, to feed the hungry.
Here we go. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. God be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou hast called by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence I find. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I am with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou art in wonder, where I true son. Thou with me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I yield, your man's empty praise. Thou my inheritance, now and always. Thou and thou only first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. Go back up. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou hast called by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence I find.
Okay, how's that? Okay, thank you. Okay, Jubilee in action. This is how we get together and do good work out in the world. We've got some announcements for you. Over a dozen jubilants participated in the first Journeying into Spring contemplative experience led by Rose Bader, a visionary facilitator of change and wholeness. The remaining events in this 4-part series will take place on Zoom at 7 p.m. March 15th, 22nd, and 29th. If you're already signed up to attend the first one, then you'll be automatically sent the Zoom link. If you have not signed up yet, please register on the website. Jubilee needs an office manager. This is an important position to keep herding the cats in the right direction here. So the ideal candidate will be detail-oriented, trustworthy, and a team player as they interact with the board, staff, and jubilants. Working knowledge of Excel, Word, Workbook, QuickBooks, and database management are essential. Please send a resume and a cover letter to Bruce Mulkey if you are interested. I've got an announcement by, where's Mary? Mary Stair, come here. You've got something important to say. And I want to, while Mary's coming up here, I do want to alert you guys. I know the red ropes back here are kind of something new, but because we're on video and we're broadcasting, that camera right there takes pictures behind us. And so we're just trying to control the flow of perhaps, if you don't want to be on camera, pay attention to the ropes. That's all I'm saying. And another thing, too, I want to alert you to a new word in the Jubilee lexicon. Prophecy. Everybody say it. Prophecy. Yes. Okay, well, maybe a fail in the whole proofreading part of our work here. But okay, Mary, come on up.
The rain is over and gone, also the snow, and the winter is passing by, and flowers have appeared on the earth again, and clouds are passing from the sky. Arise, my love, come away with me, for lo, the winter is past, the rains are over and gone, my love, come away to the garden at last. This is an invitation from the 4th century BCE, found in the middle of the Christian Bible and the Hebrew scriptures. The invitation has been coming for much longer than the 4th century BCE. A week from today is the first day of spring, and after Yona leads us in a remarkable worship experience here, you have time, if you wish, to be at the Botanical Gardens at 2 o'clock. And all the information about that is in the leaflet or online, or it's in the Song of Songs from the 4th century BCE. Arise, my loves, and come away, for lo, the winter is past. The rains are over and gone. We'll be able to sing, take each other's hands, and dance without masks.
Thank you, Mary. I'm going to be there. Janice, come on up.
Hello, I'm Janice LePay, and my art is in the art room. Bruce invited me to invite you to come and see it. Thank you.
Good morning, Jubilee. For those of you that may not know me, I'm still Yona. This Wednesday night, our annual Awakening the Bear ceremony will be here at the Celebration Center this coming Wednesday evening. The doors will be open at 6:45, and from 7 to 8:15, I hope you will please come and join us in a prayer of awakening the bears and awakening the messages that have been shared with us by Mother Nature or Mother Earth over the winters. Our prayers have set inside our heart and lay dormant now when the warmth coming to reawaken that. And also, announcement number 2, to further that ceremony, I asked on Friday night, there's going to be a full moon sweat lodge, which will also be a continuation of the bear ceremony, where we will actually do a coming to the cave and offering our offerings to the bears. So if you want the more information about that, there's a sign-up sheet over here on the desk, and hope to see you there. Thank you very much.
And that's Jubilee in action. If you have any questions or want to check times or events that are happening, go to jubileecommunity.org. Everything's listed there. So next up, we have Monica Wengler. She's going to give us a gift of nature from the Earth team. Come on, Monica.
Good morning, Jubilee, and greetings from the Earth team. I just want to make sure you can all hear me. I will start this presentation with a confession. Out at my place in East Asheville, I have a huge, stinky, and slimy compost pile. It's not that I don't know how to compost properly, it's that I love to raise flies. Yes, you heard me right, I like to raise flies. Next logical question would be, why in the world would anybody want to do that? Well, first of all, I think flies are cool. And if you have any doubt about that, I recommend reading the book Superfly. Mostly I raise them as food for other animals, though. Most birds require insects to feed their young, and even hummingbirds catch tiny gnats to feed their babies. Other animals will come and dig through the pile looking for grubs to eat. Flies are also the second largest group of pollinators right after bees. I try to support other insects on my property as well. Insects are a vital part of the ecosystem and they are in great peril. Over 40% of all insects are declining and a third are endangered. According to researchers, a quarter of insects could be wiped out within a decade. Whenever I present these figures, I usually get a response along the lines of, oh, just come over to my place. I get tons of insects. Do you really? We get used to taking for normal what we encounter on a daily basis. A lot of you here in the room are old enough to remember those days when you would take long road trips, and every couple of hours you would have to pull over at a gas station to scrape all the dead bugs off the windshield. When's the last time you had to do that? Let's face it, most people don't like insects, except for maybe butterflies or honeybees. I have to admit there are a few that I could do without as well, but even those have their place in nature. Now, how can we change people's attitudes towards insects? Matthew Fox says, people will only protect what they love and are in awe of. Or to honor the recently departed Thich Nhat Hanh, who believed that we are part of the earth and she is part of us, calling on us to awaken and fall in love again with the earth. Here are a few amazing facts about insects. And I hope you're enjoying the pictures too. We have all heard comparisons like if a flea were the size of a human, it could jump over the Eiffel Tower, or a dung beetle can drag the equivalent of a human pulling 6 double-decker buses. But did you know that dung beetles navigate by the stars? Recent research shows that insects are sentient beings, capable of feeling pain and probably pleasure, needing sleep, and being able to learn. Honeybees understand the concept of same and different, more and less, and even zero. You might have heard of mirror self-recognition. It's a test that's considered a benchmark test for self-awareness. Until recently, this test had only been administered to animals that we consider highly intelligent, like apes or elephants or dolphins. These animals recognize themselves in a mirror. In 2015, Belgian scientists administered the MSR to ants and found that they were also capable of self-recognition. The ants even showed behavior like inspecting themselves in the mirror and starting to groom the legs and the antenna. I guess even ants want to look their best when they go out. Now, if you still feel compelled to smash the next fly that lands on your table, consider this. Scientists prepared 2 dishes of fruit. One was plain mashed fruit, the other one was laced with alcohol. They then brought in 2 groups of male fruit flies. The first group had recently mated with females. The other group had not been able to accomplish this. While the first group congregated mainly around the plain fruit, the sex-deprived group was drawn to, you guessed it, the booze. Let me close with a quote by Richard Carlson. Somewhere in the back of your mind, try to remember that everything has God's fingerprints on it. The fact that we can't see the beauty in something doesn't suggest it's not there. Rather, it suggests that we are not looking carefully enough or with a broad enough perspective to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Earth Team. Oh, boy. Thank you, masks. We're just going with it, okay? We're just going with beer. It's prophecy, after all. It's prophecy. There we go. I am on. There's an internet joke. I'm an internet joke right now because I'm on the internet. But there's an internet joke. I never had blank on my bingo card. Probably seen it. I never had a global pandemic, the start of World War III, that's not happening, it's hopefully, and some celebrity whatnot on my bingo card. I don't know. But these things happen, right? Not the start of World War III. That's just not on my bingo card. So I try not to personally put things on my bingo card, or at least the bingo card of bad things. There's the bingo card of what we just saw, growth. The bingo card of billions of insects that we have to nurture and protect. The bingo card of what comes out of the earth. The bingo card of what we know that we have to protect if we are to continue savoring each blessed day. And sure, there's plenty of room for laughter in that. It's prophecy after all. So I encourage you to have that bingo card of surprise. What could it be? Could it be lifting up a leaf and seeing, oh my goodness, look at all those ladybugs? What could it be? What is your bingo card of prayer? What are you expectantly, joyfully waiting for? I invite you to pray. If you're watching this online, please enter your prayer in the chat. Everything is holy now. Let everything be holy now. The hard things, the surprising things, what warms us, what chills us. Let everything, in the words of Peter Mayer, be holy now. breathe deeply. After we sing, I invite you to share God's peace.
You shall cross the barren desert, but you shall not die thirst. You shall wander for safety, though you do not know the way. You shall speak your words in foreign lands where all will understand. You shall see the face of God and live. Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come, follow me, and I will give you rest. Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come, follow me, and I will give you rest. Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come, follow me, and I will give
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, it's so nice to be in person, to be able to come around and do this, to hug and to greet one another. So I invite you to hear these holy words from Ezekiel 34, verse 18. Is it not enough for you to feed on good pasture? Must you also trample the rest of your pasture with your feet? Is it not enough for you to drink clear water? Must you also muddy the rest with your feet? And from T.S. Eliot, teach us to care and not to care. Teach us to sit still. This is ancient wisdom and holy word. Thanks be to all that is wise and holy. All creation is wisdom and holy word. All creation sings of wisdom in God. Hallelujah. Well, Jubilee, I'm glad to introduce to you once again our fellow Jubilee minister, Chris Andrews. And at this time, we'll turn it over to Chris in a good way, I hope.
Good morning, Jubilee. It's a delight to share with you, even though I wish with all of my heart that we could do this in person. I'm standing at an office on the banks of the Mississippi River here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, recording this and looking out at the waters as they flow down past our city toward the Gulf of Mexico, knowing that they've come from so much of the country and that they bring so much of the spirit of this country past our land. And so I connect somehow by these flowing waters with the flowing of the Spirit with you this morning and say God bless you and thank you for the good work that you're doing. That little community of Wall Street, we must never underestimate its importance for our world. And thanks to those of you who work behind the scenes so diligently and faithfully and make it possible for people like me to connect on Sunday mornings through YouTube and other means of technology. The ministry that you do is a very vital and important thing. So we're thinking about crossing the threshold in this via creativa. And today, crossing the threshold of prophecy. Now, in the Bible and in the tradition of faith, there are, if you will, three great ministries, three historic ministries. There's the ministry of the priest, there's the ministry of the pastor, and there's the ministry of the prophet. Now, the priest is that essential ministry that brings together people and the holy. The priest stands at the altar and breaks the bread and serves the chalice. The priest puts the hands on the heads in the waters of baptism. The priest pronounces absolution and forgiveness. The priest makes the connections. Important ministry. And there's the ministry of the pastor, perhaps best captured by the theme of Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, because the pastor is the shepherd. The pastor is the one who draws near when the night is long. The pastor is the one who comes with the oil of healing when the wounds are deep. The pastor is the one with the comforting hand on the shoulder, the soft and tender word of guidance. People love their pastors. When I was in pastoral ministry, I knew that you could offer really not stellar sermons, but if you were a good pastor, folks would tolerate you. They'd love you. They'd like you. And I used to cringe when I'd hear somebody say, we've got a good little pastor. Meaning like a little lap dog that crawled up into your lap you could cuddle with. People love their pastors because they bring comfort. And who doesn't need comfort at some time or the other in their life? And then there's the ministry of the prophet. Oh my goodness, the prophet. The ministry that many people would rather not be in contact with. The ministry that many who love the status quo wish would go away or at least be quiet. But the ministry that is always needed, the ministry of the prophet. Biblical scholar Walter Brueggemann talks about royal theology and prophetic imagination. And he says that these two are in constant tension with one another, and we need both. And royal theology, he points out, is the theology of the king. It's the theology of the status quo, the theology of permanence. And then there's prophetic imagination, theology of change, the theology of calling into being that which does not exist. And they do conflict, because often the king is invested in the permanency of the way things are, of the status quo, because it's doing pretty well for the king. But for those on the margins, prophetic imagination of what isn't yet, but might be. So the tension. Well, crossing the threshold of prophecy is about opening ourselves to the ministry of the prophet, which is always the ministry of critiquing what is real and judging it against the backdrop of justice and of love. Prophetic work is about going out into the world and perhaps raising questions that no one else is asking. The prophet is the one who is always ready to say no to everything that is not of God. No to the abuse of women. No to the rejection of strangers. No to the rape of forests. No to crimes against immigrants. No to the pollution of the skies. No to the poisoning of the oceans. No to the despicable destruction of human life for the sake of more wealth and more power and more control of the few, such as we're seeing in Ukraine right now. No to death. Daniel Berrigan, a modern prophet who was particularly active and decried during the Vietnam War, when he decried that war, he said the prophet is one who speaks the truth to a culture of lies. The prophet is one who speaks the truth to a culture of lies. And though the prophet says no, the prophet also says yes. The prophet says yes to equal rights for all, and yes to alleviating suffering, and yes to embracing the different, and yes to who God made you, and yes to life. So prophetic spirituality cultivates a growing awareness, an ever larger embrace of life, and acceptance of others. The words of poet Mary Oliver may capture the essence of what prophetic ministry is all about. She said, pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. Pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. What would happen if those words were written on the walls of every house of worship. People had to look at those words, pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. Maybe then we might begin to notice when the first immigrants are turned away. We're paying attention. Maybe then we might notice when the inner city schools are shut down. Maybe then we might know when the bus routes are changed so that they no longer go to those places where that kind of public transportation is most needed. We're paying attention. We're paying attention. And we'll tell about it. Prophetic spirituality is just that. It's a spiritual legacy that embodies the commitment of Jesus the prophet and the courage of all of those seers and those gadflies, the insightful and sensitized men and women who came before him and who call for the will of God for everyone. It's a call to live not only in the praise of God, but in union with God's will for the world. In other words, prophetic spirituality is about living out our faith on the streets where we live, rather than just talking about it. Because faith is invalid unless you're living it. We all know that. And that's the basic message of the prophets. It's as true today as it was 1,000 years ago. They, in the scriptures, speak loudly. Don't bring to me the music of your feast, and take away from me your solemn assemblies, your worship services, until you're willing to live the way of justice and fight for the truth of the well-being of all. The way of the prophet's not an easy way. It can be tiring and wearying, but at the same time electrifying. I think about Jeremiah, that marvelous weeping prophet, as he's called, who had such a sensitivity for his people, felt their pain in his own heart as his own pain. In two different instances in that marvelous book that chronicles his ministry, Jeremiah says, in essence, I am done. I quit. I'm packing it in. You can have this. Says to God, I resign. And then before he's able to walk out the door, he says to himself, there is within me something like a burning fire, and I cannot hold it in, and I cannot help but speak. That's the passion of the prophets. They were often misunderstood. They were maligned. They were not taken seriously. They were made the butt of jokes, but they stayed at their task. The biblical prophets of Israel, every one of them, when they came to a crossroad between truth and untruth, when they had an opportunity to settle down, to quit, to stop resisting evil, to accept what was, they chose instead to keep on going. And despite difficulties, they chose to live and to proclaim truth with a capital T, to themselves and to others. They were those sirens in the night, the sowers of the far-flung seeds, the eternal agitators in the souls of people. They were the torches in the murk of confusion. They knew that if ever they were to find their way out of the darkness which a failed leadership had condemned them to, the prophets knew that some truth speakers still had to speak, no matter how few they were. Like Elijah standing at the entrance to his cave, being questioned by God, what are you doing here? And saying, I'm the only one left. And it's too hard out there. And God saying, rise and go. There are still 7,000 who have not bowed the knee to Baal. God always uses the remnant of the prophet, to bring about the work of justice and of redemption. The early prophets, now get this, the early prophets were people just like us. They were simple, they were sincere, they were eager, they were inspired, they were confused, they were perplexed, they were troubled. They were sheep herders like Amos, and small business people like Hosea, and simple country farmers or priests like Jeremiah. They were thinkers and writers and dreamers like Isaiah and Ezekiel. They were struggling lovers and suffering witnesses like Micah. They were brave and independent judges and leaders like Deborah and Miriam. And they made no small choices. They chose courage. They chose the expansion of the soul. They chose to stake their lives on what must be rather than stake their comfort and security on what was. It's in that tradition that we cross the threshold of prophecy. It is that steadfast, unyielding, courageous commitment to the eternal will of God for the welfare of all creation, whatever the cost. That's the prophetic tradition. And that's what sustains the eternal Word of God, while the world spins on its axis, eventually making God's Word the center of that axis, the Word of love. I have a little grandson. Well, we have 3 grandchildren, and like you, our grandchildren are perfect, and we love them dearly. But this is the 3rd one in the Trinity. Little guy. He was spending the night with us some time ago, and he gets up earlier than I do, and I'm an early riser. He gets up and he comes into the bedroom and he says, "Get up, Granddad, I'm tired of sleeping." I think that's a prophetic word, because prophets are always trying to wake up those who are asleep. And prophets are tired of sleeping because prophets are alive, and they make a difference. Some years ago, I was a part of a little gathering that was hosting some missionaries who were home on furlough. It was a nice young couple, missionary couple, husband and wife. And I figured it was going to be one of those, bland church meeting kind of things, but it was really life-changing for me. When the evening started and the 2 missionaries got up, ostensibly to make the report about the work they were doing in some far-flung land somewhere. We were underwriting some of their support. But the missionary said, "I've come tonight to talk to you about mercy and about justice, and to make sure we understand that they are different things, different qualities." It piqued my attention. I sat a little straighter in my chair. So here's the missionary. He says, "Suppose you were standing out on the banks of the Mississippi River, and you saw a child floating down the river who was in obvious distress, crying for help. What would you do?" Somebody in the audience said, "Well, I'd reach into the river and take the child out, dry it off, take care of it, make sure it was safe." And the missionary said, "That would be a work of mercy." And he said, "While you were doing that, suppose you saw 2 children floating down the river in distress." Somebody said, "We'd get them out too." "Another work of mercy," said the missionary. "And while you were doing that to those 2 children, what if 4 children came floating down?" Again, we'd take them out. "Good works of mercy," said the missionary. "And while you were doing that, suppose 8 children came flowing down the river." And at that point, a gentleman in the back of the room, who frankly I thought had fallen asleep, sort of lifted his head and said, "I think I'd go up that river and see who's throwing those babies in." And the missionary said, "That would be a work of justice." Now that's what it means to cross the threshold of prophecy. To ask the questions that are deeper than just how can we make somebody feel better. To ask, why do people feel bad in the first place? To ask not how can we feed these people, but why are these people hungry? To ask not how can we shelter these people, though that's important, but why are these people without shelter at all? See, the prophet always goes to that deeper layer of concern and asks the harder questions. That's what we're supposed to be about. And I just have to say very sincerely and from my heart that one of the reasons that I'm so delighted to be a part of Jubilee, the Jubilee community there on Wall Street, is because I believe that many of you live the life of the prophet. I've heard Ron's alerts about political issues. I've listened to different people on the earth team. I've listened to the cries for justice that come in non-spoken ways as somebody like Ann does a marvelous dance on a Sunday morning. I've listened and know that you are prophets. And I say keep it up, because there has never been a time when this world has needed more badly the ministry of the prophet. So let's cross that threshold. Let's speak truth to power. Let's say no to all that is wrong, and a big and bold yes to all that is right. May God bless you, all of you, Jubilee, as you continue the great prophetic ministry of that community there on Wall Street. And I say keep it up, because there has never been a time when this world has needed more badly the ministry of the prophet. So let's cross that threshold. Let's speak truth to power. Let's say no to all that is wrong, and a big and bold yes to all that is right. May God bless you, all of you, Jubilee, as you continue the great prophetic ministry of that community there on Wall Street.
I am blessed. And wow, that's very, very inspiring. And thank you so much, Chris. And it's such an honor to be a part of this community and to be part of this leadership and part of everything that our board does. Jay, all of us, everybody, Bruce, everyone that it takes to make this happen. And even with this prophecy thing going on, it's kind of like Jay brought up in the meeting about this dyslexic octopus that's just got all these tentacles going in all of these different directions. But prophesizing into life, the consistency that we see and the congruency that we see, so that all these things start to make sense. So in that way, thank you so much, Jubilee. Thank you for being here. And in this time, we ask you out there in the world to consider your gifts to this community, the ongoing efforts that are going on. You here at Jubilee know that your gifts are greatly appreciated. They're given so much to everything else that's going on, to the prophecies that we just heard about, and our efforts that are going out into the community. So we ask you in this moment to give in a good way. I hope. Thank you, Jubilee. I ask you all to stand, please, as we get ready to go out into this week. As Chris reminded us that through all of our efforts and just through our visioning, we are prophets ourselves. Let's go out into the world and let's create the beauty that we've imagined here. Let's speak it to life. The world's a blank canvas out there. Let's go out there and create the beauty that we are as a community. Become the prophets. And let's do it in a good way. Oh.
take the road I should lead you. Take the wind, bring always at your back. May the sunshine roll upon your face. May the rain fall softly on your fields until we meet again. May God hold you in the hollow of her hand.
Create a good rest of your week, Jubilee.
Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. I wanna fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free. Oh Lord, through the revolution, feed the babies who don't have enough to eat. Shoe the children with no shoes on their feet. How's the people living in the street? Oh, there's a solution. Fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I wanna fly like an eagle till I'm free. Oh, through the revolution. Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Time keeps on slipping. Oh, time slipping into the future. Keeps into the future. I want to fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. Fly like an eagle. To
Thank you, Jubilee. See you next week.